Ladies and gentlemen, when you've been caught in the web of a narcissist, you have to understand something deeply unsettling that most people never want to face. Their hatred doesn't stop at control, manipulation, or dominance. In the darkest corners of their inner world, that obsession mutates into something far more dangerous and corrosive. They don't simply want to own your time, your attention, or your emotions. They want to annihilate you on a deeper level. They want to erase your sense of self, your confidence, your voice, and eventually your existence from their psychological universe, as if you never mattered at all. When a narcissist wants you destroyed, the first warning sign does not appear through overt violence or open threats. It appears in their imagination. Inside their mind lives a private theater where they replay twisted fantasies about your humiliation, your collapse, and your suffering. These are not fleeting or harmless thoughts. They are obsessive, repetitive, and emotionally charged. In these inner scenes, you are stripped of dignity and reduced to nothing, while they stand victorious, powerful, and justified. For them, these fantasies are soothing. They calm the raging emptiness inside by offering a false sense of superiority and dominance. A narcissist does not want to win an argument or prove a single point. They want to witness your unraveling. They want to see you doubt yourself, lose your footing, and question your worth. In extreme cases, their fantasy extends to seeing you disappear completely, emotionally, or even physically. This is why their reactions to your pain feel so disturbing. When you stumble, they don't rush to help. When you fail, they don't feel concern. Instead, there is a flicker of satisfaction behind their eyes, a subtle pleasure that feels cold and wrong. That reaction is not accidental. If you observe closely, these inner fantasies leak out in small, chilling ways. You see it in the smirk when you admit a mistake, in the strange calm they display when something precious is taken from you, or in a joke that slices far deeper than humor ever should. These moments linger in your mind because your intuition recognizes danger before logic can explain it. It is terrifying to realize that someone could nourish themselves on your suffering, but that is exactly what happens. Your pain feeds their sense of control, and control is the only thing that temporarily silences their inner void. Your tears are not met with empathy or concern. They are met with validation. To the narcissist, your distress confirms that they still matter, that they still have power, that they still exist. Your breakdown becomes evidence that they are dominant and relevant. This is how they feed psychologically, through dominance, through emotional injury, and through watching another human being fracture under their influence. Once they taste that kind of control, it becomes intoxicating. The idea of erasing you, silencing you, or seeing you broken becomes addictive, something they secretly crave. They will never admit this openly. Instead, they disguise it behind sarcasm, cruelty disguised as humor, or offhand comments that leave you unsettled. You might hear phrases like, "You'd be nothing without me," or "You'll regret leaving me one day." On the surface, it sounds like arrogance or insecurity. Beneath those words lies something far more sinister. Those statements are fragments of a larger fantasy they nurture privately, a vision where you are reduced and they are elevated. It is not about love or loss, it is about domination. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Fantasies demand expression. The more they rehearse your downfall in their mind, the stronger the urge becomes to manifest it in reality. That is why so many survivors describe the eerie feeling that their abuser was waiting for them to collapse. This isn't paranoia, it's instinct. On a deep level, you sense when someone isn't just angry or resentful, but actively invested in your destruction. You feel it in their silence when you're struggling, and in the disappointment they show when you start to heal. They do not want you happy or strong because your strength exposes their lack of control. Your independence proves that they are not essential, not powerful, not superior. That realization threatens the fragile structure holding their identity together, so their imagination darkens further. It shifts from hoping you fail to imagining you gone. That is why those small warning signs matter so much. The odd comfort they take in your tragedies, the way they seem to anticipate your collapse, the subtle expectation that you will eventually break. These are not coincidences. These moments are windows into a disturbed inner world rehearsing your end. When you finally see this pattern clearly, the danger becomes undeniable. Long before a narcissist ever contemplates physical destruction, they aim for something far more insidious: the destruction of your identity. This process is slow and methodical. They dismantle you piece by piece until you no longer recognize yourself. This is their true expertise. They kill your spirit first, ensuring that even if you remain physically present, the person you once were feels gone. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. They question your decisions, your instincts, your dreams. At first, it sounds like concern or guidance. They frame their criticism as care, but over time, the tone changes. Doubt replaces encouragement. Confidence is met with skepticism. You start hearing phrases like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" or "No one else thinks you're capable." Each comment chips away at your inner foundation. These words are psychological toxins. They settle in your mind and slowly alter how you see yourself. Eventually, their voice becomes louder than your own. That is when the next phase begins: isolation. They sever your connections with surgical precision. Friends are portrayed as dangerous, jealous, or disloyal. Family members are labeled as toxic or unsupportive. Any relationship that reinforces your identity becomes a threat to their control. Over time, you find yourself increasingly alone, dependent on the very person who is dismantling you. This isolation is not accidental. It ensures that their narrative becomes the only reality you hear, and that makes their control nearly absolute. Gradually, you find yourself alone, cut off from every external voice that once anchored you to reality, until the narcissist becomes your only remaining source of truth. When their voice is the only one you hear, their version of reality slowly replaces your own. They tell you who you are, what you should believe, what you should desire, and even what emotions you're allowed to feel. Bit by bit, your authentic self fades. You stop existing as an individual and begin existing as an extension of them. You become their possession, their psychological creation, a distorted reflection designed to serve their needs. This is not love, connection, or intimacy. This is a quiet psychological execution carried out over time. Once they have isolated you completely, they move in on the parts of you that once made life meaningful. Your passions, the hobbies that brought you joy, suddenly become targets. They mock them openly or dismiss them as childish, pointless, or embarrassing. The work you once felt proud of is belittled until you question its value. The dreams that once gave you hope are laughed at until you feel foolish for ever believing in them. What they are doing is dismantling your identity piece by piece. If they can destroy what makes you unique, they can empty you. And when you are empty, you are disposable. This slow erasure of your identity is the first stage of death in their twisted internal narrative. Once they have hollowed you out emotionally, the step toward wanting you gone entirely is no longer a dramatic leap. They have already tested your limits. They know how much of your spirit they can crush, how much of your fire they can dim, how much of your personality they can erase without immediate resistance. Each success feeds their sense of power. At that point, you are no longer just someone they resent. You are someone they have already killed internally, long before any visible ending. What makes this process even more frightening is how invisible it feels while it's happening. You rarely notice it in real time. One day you simply wake up and realize you no longer recognize yourself. You doubt every decision. You question every thought. You feel small, insignificant, and undeserving of love. You begin believing that you are nothing without them, that your existence only has value through their approval. That belief didn't form by accident. It is the outcome they carefully engineered. They want you lifeless in spirit long before they ever destroy your future, your body, or your opportunities. Many survivors of narcissistic abuse describe this state as feeling dead inside, emotionally numb and hollow. That description is painfully accurate because that emptiness is exactly what the narcissist is trying to create. Their ultimate goal is not just to hurt you, but to erase your inner life, your soul, your sense of being someone separate and whole. By the time you realize what has happened, they have already rewritten your internal world. To them, erasing your spirit is the ultimate victory because a person without a self is easy to control, discard, or destroy. When a narcissist sets their sights on destroying you, control becomes their primary obsession. It is no longer about influence, persuasion, or guidance. It becomes about total domination. They want ownership over your thoughts, your movements, your choices, and even your breathing space. They monitor your life as if it belongs to them, treating your independence as theft. Every decision you make is scrutinized, questioned, and criticized. They cannot tolerate the idea of you living a life that exists beyond their reach. Your autonomy threatens their fragile sense of power. Every phone call, every message, every social interaction becomes a perceived threat. The more you attempt to reclaim your freedom, the more hostile and aggressive their behavior becomes. This control rarely starts as obvious abuse. It hides beneath the mask of concern. Who are you talking to? Where are you going? What did you say to them? These questions sound innocent on the surface, but they are not. They are tools of surveillance, methods of tracking your behavior, mapping your routines, and anticipating your next move so manipulation can stay one step ahead. They store mental notes about everything, your friends, your habits, your insecurities, your fears. Every detail becomes ammunition. Each time you act independently, they respond with suspicion, anger, or guilt-tripping designed to pull you back into line. What makes this dynamic so dangerous is how slowly it escalates. It begins with small suggestions, tiny corrections, subtle criticisms. Maybe you shouldn't wear that. I don't think that person really likes you. You always mess that up. These comments seem minor until they become constant. Over time, suggestions turn into commands. Corrections turn into rules. They begin telling you who to see, where to go, what to say, and how to behave. Your confidence erodes to the point where resisting feels exhausting. You start doubting your judgment, convincing yourself that compliance is easier than conflict. You tell yourself it's not worth the argument, but every time you give in, they tighten the chains. Your surrender teaches them how far they can push, and they never stop pushing. No matter how much power you hand over, it is never enough. A narcissist does not seek balance, compromise, or mutual respect. They seek domination. When they sense that they are losing control, when they realize you still have a fragment of strength, independence, or self-awareness left, you become a threat. And in their worldview, threats must be eliminated. If they cannot bend you completely to their will, the only outcome they accept is your destruction. Control and annihilation are inseparably linked in their mind. What makes this truly terrifying is how personal it is. This is not distant cruelty or abstract abuse. It is intimate, targeted, and deliberate. You are not just caught in a bad situation. You are being managed by a mind that views your life as a stage for their power fantasies. The more you resist, the more aggressively they push back. To them, your resistance is proof that you must be broken further. And until that happens, they will not stop. They watch your routines closely, studying your habits the way a predator studies its prey. Every pattern, every reaction, every emotional response becomes data to them. They twist situations deliberately, pushing and pulling just enough to see where you bend. They test your limits repeatedly, not to understand you, but to find the exact pressure points where your independence collapses. Every time you attempt to reclaim control, they respond with increased force, sharper manipulation, deeper psychological games. In their mind, you are not allowed to exist outside their command. Your autonomy feels like rebellion, and rebellion must be crushed until submission feels inevitable. This level of obsession is deeply draining and profoundly terrifying. It leaves you emotionally exhausted, mentally foggy, and painfully alone. You begin doubting your instincts, second-guessing your thoughts, and fearing the consequences of acting freely. Even small decisions feel dangerous. While you are desperately trying to hold on to your sanity, the narcissist is already planning the next phase. They are imagining the moment when control is no longer enough, when domination must give way to erasure. Their hunger for power slowly mutates into a craving for destruction. For them, control is not influence. It is ownership, possession, and total domination. When that sense of ownership begins to slip, when they feel you might escape their grasp, the desire to see you gone replaces the desire to control you. One of the most dangerous ways this hidden wish reveals itself is through quiet, unseen attacks on your reputation. Narcissists rarely confront you openly. Instead, they operate in the shadows, using whispers, subtle lies, and twisted truths. This is the art of character assassination. It is a slow, silent war designed to make you appear unstable, untrustworthy, or dangerous, while they remain blameless. Outsiders may never notice it, but for you, it feels like reality is collapsing. Smear campaigns become their weapon of choice. They start small, with tiny distortions of truth wrapped in fake concern. They tell friends and family selective stories that portray you as difficult or emotionally unstable. They speak to co-workers in a way that casts themselves as the victim and you as the problem. Each lie is carefully crafted, timed to moments when you are emotionally vulnerable. These false narratives spread quietly, and anyone who once supported you begins to hesitate. People grow uncertain, unsure of what to believe. By the time you recognize what is happening, the damage is already done. This strategy is so dangerous because it attacks before you can defend yourself. You sense something is wrong long before you understand it. Friends become distant, colleagues grow cold, family members look at you with subtle suspicion. You feel judged, but cannot explain why. That is when the narcissist feels satisfaction. They take pleasure in watching you question your worth, seeing you isolated, confused, and powerless. They do not need to touch you to destroy you. Your social world becomes the weapon. Every relationship is manipulated into another tool of control. By controlling how others perceive you, they shrink your world. Your circle grows smaller. Your confidence weakens. Your existence begins to feel insignificant. When they reach this stage, they have already rehearsed your erasure. Physical destruction is unnecessary because you have already been erased in the eyes of others. You begin living as a shadow of who you once were, doubting every word you say, questioning every memory, unsure of what is real anymore. That confusion is their victory. Every rumor, every half-truth, every lie becomes another brick in the wall, isolating you from support. Their goal is not merely to hurt you, it is to ensure that no one believes you, no one defends you, and no one sees your value. When they succeed, they can step back and watch you struggle in a world they have poisoned against you. That is why recognizing the warning signs early is so critical. The strange comments from friends, the sudden distance from colleagues, the unexplained shift in how people treat you are not coincidences. They are evidence of a narcissist quietly rehearsing your destruction long before you understand what is happening. Their cruelty goes far beyond manipulation. It is fueled by the twisted pleasure they derive from your pain. They do not just want control, they want to feel alive through your suffering. Watching you unravel excites them. Seeing you distressed makes them feel powerful. Your sadness becomes their entertainment, your fear their joy, your breakdown their triumph. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of hopelessness feeds their ego. They may hide it behind false kindness or carefully chosen words, but behind the mask is cold satisfaction. They keep score silently. Every time you falter, every time you struggle, they feel stronger. They collect your pain like trophies. When you need comfort, they withhold it. When you reach out, they pretend to care while secretly feeding on your distress. At first, the cruelty seems small. A cutting remark, a sarcastic joke, a subtle insult disguised as advice. But those moments accumulate. Each one chips away at your confidence, reshaping how you see yourself until you start believing their lies. They create doubt so deep that you begin questioning your own worth, your memories, and your perceptions. You start wondering if you really are the problem. And the moment they see that confusion reflected in your eyes, they know they have succeeded. That doubt signals control. It tells them your sense of self is fractured. From that point on, they push harder because they know you are vulnerable. And to a narcissist, vulnerability is not something to protect. It is something to exploit until nothing of you remains. That is exactly what they want. They want you dependent, fragile, and convinced that peace only exists when they permit it. Over time, this pattern does not fade or stabilize. It escalates. They invent new ways to provoke you, manipulate your emotions, and pull you apart internally. Your reactions become entertainment. Every tear, every attempt to explain yourself, every moment you lose composure becomes another victory in their private game. They do not respect your strength. They see it as defiance. Every act of courage challenges their dominance, and that challenge fuels their cruelty. Your pain becomes their purpose, and your destruction becomes the outcome they quietly work toward. What makes this so dangerous is how ordinary it looks to the outside world. To others, the narcissist often appears charming, generous, calm, and compassionate. They are admired for their patience and praised for their kindness. Meanwhile, you are slowly framed as emotional, unstable, distant, or difficult. This contrast is not accidental. They deliberately construct two separate realities. One is public and polished, the other is private and terrifying. You live inside the nightmare while they wear a mask of innocence for everyone else. That imbalance isolates you further and makes your suffering invisible, which is exactly how they want it. Over time, they begin to erode your trust in your own perception. You start questioning your reactions, your memories, your feelings. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it's my fault. That confusion is not a side effect. It is the goal. The more uncertain you become, the easier it is for them to steer your emotions and control your reality. When you no longer trust yourself, you lean on them for clarity. That dependency feeds their ego and reinforces their sense of superiority. In their mind, your confusion confirms their power and justifies their behavior. But their desire does not end with control. It evolves into something darker. The fantasy of your complete disappearance. Watching you suffer becomes a rehearsal for that final outcome. They imagine a world where you no longer exist, where your name carries no weight, where your influence is erased entirely. This has nothing to do with love, heartbreak, or grief. It is about domination and victory. You can sense this shift when their focus changes, when they stop trying to fix you and start preparing for a future without you, quietly and methodically. At first, this preparation is subtle. They begin forming new connections that do not include you. They seek replacements, build alliances, and cultivate people who can serve their next phase. They may flirt openly, invest emotionally elsewhere, or surround themselves with individuals who validate their narrative. To you, it feels cold and unsettling. To them, it feels energizing. They experience it as freedom. While you are still emotionally entangled, they are already imagining life beyond you, one where your presence is unnecessary and inconvenient. They begin studying your life closely, not with appreciation, but with calculation. Your talents, achievements, relationships, even your belongings become things they want to absorb, replace, or claim. It is not about survival after you are gone. It is about winning. They want proof that they can not only live without you, but thrive because you are gone. In their mind, they rehearse this victory repeatedly, picturing themselves stronger, cleaner, more admired, while you fade into irrelevance. This rehearsal is not fantasy alone. It is preparation. Every move they make during this phase is intentional. They slowly erase your influence from shared spaces, replace your connections, and begin telling a revised version of history. They take ownership of the narrative. You become the villain. They become the survivor. Long before you actually leave, you are reduced to a shadow. People begin seeing you through the lens the narcissist created. Your voice loses credibility. Your truth becomes questionable. By the time you realize what has happened, your identity has already been overwritten in the minds of others. What makes this phase especially chilling is the calm that accompanies it. They stop raging, they stop arguing, they appear peaceful, detached, even polite. But this is not healing or maturity. It is calculation. It is the quiet focus of someone who has already made a decision. Your chapter in their story is finished. They are no longer trying to control you moment by moment. They are simply waiting for the right moment to close the book and move on without resistance or consequences. This is the narcissist's final transition, from control to elimination. Their obsession was never just about owning you. It was about ensuring you have nowhere to return, no voice to speak with, no one to believe you. This is the cruelest form of power, not only to dominate your life, but to rewrite the memory of your existence. To survive this, you must see the truth behind their mask. Their calm is not peace. Their kindness is not care. Their words are not love. Everything is a move designed to maintain control or prepare for your erasure. Recognize the pattern early. Protect your boundaries fiercely. Guard your reputation. Preserve your truth, even when it feels exhausting. Because once a narcissist begins imagining a world without you, they are already constructing it. They are building a future where your voice is silenced, your story rewritten, and your presence deliberately forgotten. And the moment you see that clearly is the moment you take your power back. But their fantasy does not have to become your fate. The power they claim over you is not real power. It only exists as long as you believe in it, submit to it, and organize your life around it. A narcissist's dominance survives through your emotional investment, your fear, and your hope that things will change. The moment you stop feeding that illusion, something remarkable happens. Their control weakens, their certainty fractures. The image they built of themselves as all-powerful begins to crack. They cannot dominate someone who no longer seeks their approval or fears their judgment. When you withdraw your emotional energy, when you stop reacting, explaining, or defending yourself, the narcissist loses their fuel. They rely on your responses to feel important. Your silence unsettles them because it removes their mirror. Without your reactions, they are forced to face the emptiness they've been running from. That is why reclaiming your worth feels dangerous to them. It threatens the foundation of their identity. The moment you stop participating in their narrative, their control starts to unravel, and the mask they wear becomes harder to maintain. In that quiet space where you begin choosing yourself again, clarity returns. You start hearing your own voice after years of it being drowned out. Your instincts sharpen, your memories make sense. The confusion lifts slowly but steadily. And as you reconnect with who you are, their manipulation loses its grip. Their words sound hollow. Their threats lose weight. The reality they tried to impose no longer feels absolute. You realize their power was never strength. It was dependency. And once that dependency ends, so does their authority over your life.